Your initial thoughts on the quarter, it looks pretty solid all around, and the market seems to like it.
It does, and it was interesting, of course, to see what happened with the iPhone numbers, because while we got early signs that iPhone 11 did well, the question mark was how badly were the previous year's models declining before those iPhone 11 numbers hit. Apparently not too badly. Services looks up again as well, so yeah, I mean, they really did what people are expecting, and again, the quarter forecast looks to be pretty reasonable as well. I mean, we're going to have to dig down a little bit in the call. I'm sure they're going to get into a little bit more color on what happens next quarter, because next quarter is really when we start to see, obviously, the TV services and more impact from the gaming services they just announced. All those kinds of things are going to be important, as well as, of course, the sales of the iPhone 11.
So, Bob, I mean, we're still seeing a little bit of a slowdown in the growth rates, though, on some of these things. And there's a lot of anticipation about what a 5G phone could mean in terms of just building some excitement for folks to come in and replace those phones. How much importance are you putting on that 5G iPhone should it actually materialize next year?
I think a 5G iPhone is going to be really important because, especially here in the U.S., we know that iPhone is an incredibly important factor. It drives the carriers to build up their networks. So we're going to see the network build up over the course of the first part of 2020, partially, frankly, in preparation for the launch of that iPhone 5G. Now, there are a lot of very interesting challenges in terms of the real-world benefits that people are going to see from 5G that I think still have to be overcome. So we have to temper that enthusiasm to some degree. But I think it is going to be very important. It's going to be, frankly, a check mark. By the time the iPhone with 5G comes out, every other phone will have it. So if Apple didn't have it, they're going to look far behind, especially because people keep phones, remember now, for like 3 years now.
One to remember. I want to get the geographical perspective of Apple, because of all the big tech names that are traded here in the US, Apple is significantly exposed to China.
Right.
$11.1 billion is what they're pulling in. How does that sound to you? Are they getting involved in any sort of culture wars? Is there still enough demand there, given it's its second biggest market?
That actually, just going from my memory on the estimates, was better than expected, I believe. And I think on the margin, as the pressure comes off the trade war and we've seen the rhetoric kind of die down here, my sense is that Apple incrementally will do better there, particularly with a lower priced iPhone. It's still an aspirational brand, which is one of the things that's worked so well for them in China. And keep in mind, China is really big on 5G. They're making a big push there. They launched in this month, actually, and so I think when the 5G iPhone comes around, we should see sales in China for Apple get a nice boost from that.
Bob, we saw this pretty nice beat on the services revenue, $12.5 billion versus $12.16 estimated. This has long been one of the stories that people have told, that there's just a much greater opportunity for Apple to harvest its existing user base and get more money out of them. Is this really starting to kick into gear in the way a lot of bulls have expected?
I think so. I mean, the numbers clearly show that. I think, obviously, they've got more services yet to come. So I think there absolutely is an interesting opportunity for Apple to build on that loyal customer base. I will say I think there are a couple of challenges we got to be aware of on the TV side, because remember that when it launches, it will not run on Android. It will not run on Windows. And most people have multiple devices, and they're not used to being able to say, oh, well, I can only watch this content on this device and this content on that device. So I think they'll change that. They already did that with Apple Music, but that is a potential glitch that I think we have to be aware of. And of course, it will be interesting, you were just talking about international, how they internationalize their content. Clearly, all their early content is going to be more US focused, so how they internationalize content in the services business is also going to be something to watch.